I arrived in Milan in September, just after summer had passed. The air carried a sour scent, like time itself had fermented. This wasn't a vacation. I had come here for a photo project titled Things Left Behind. After some searching, I chose Spetro Luna Park, a theme park that had once been a childhood paradise back in the 1980s. Now, only rusting roller coasters and darkness soaked into concrete remained. The front gate was chained shut, but I slipped through a torn section of the rusted fence with ease. From the first step inside, I was hit by the smell of rust and rotting leaves, sharp and damp. Far off in the distance, I heard a creaking sound. Not wind, more like someone gently pushing a swing. I turned on my camera. It was 4 p.m. Inside, the park felt like a maze trapped in time. The old game booths, duck shooting, ring toss, the roller coaster entrance were all covered in fine dust and thick black cobwebs stretching from the domed ceilings down to the wet ground. I saw footprints, fresh ones, leading in, but none coming out. I kept taking pictures, tried not to think too much. A sudden cold gust swept down an empty corridor. Something knocked against a wooden wall. Thud, thud, like a head hitting a plank. I spun around, no one. But later, the camera's microphone picked up something. A heavy breathing sound. Close, too close, even though I had been completely alone. I made my way to the mirror house, once a popular attraction. The glass door had shattered, but a few mirrors still stood upright inside. I stepped in. Each footstep creaked on the warped wooden floor. The air reeked of mold, sour, musty, thick like rotting mushrooms mixed with metal. I pointed my flashlight forward and froze. In the mirror before me, I saw my reflection, but something was wrong. I wasn't holding my camera. And behind me, in the reflection, stood a man in a faded security uniform, motionless, staring. I spun around. Nothing. Right then, my flashlight flickered, then died. The entire mirror house went black. Footsteps echoed. Slow, heavy, drawing closer, deliberate, as if whoever, or whatever it was, knew I couldn't escape. I bolted out of there, heart hammering in my chest. I ran straight toward the entrance. That's when I saw him. A man sitting on a bench near the old Ferris wheel, wearing a security uniform, head down, arms wrapped around a dusty radio. I was out of breath. I shouldn't be here, should I? I asked. He didn't reply, just slowly lifted his head. His eyes were milky white, but they stared right through me. One side of his face was badly scarred, like it had been melted by acid. Then he spoke, his voice crackling like it came from a broken intercom speaker. No one leaves until the sun has fully set. Before I could ask anything, he vanished. Not ran. Vanished. Like fog. I knew I wasn't dreaming. My camera was still rolling, but in the footage, I was talking to an empty bench. I reached the old roller coaster tracks. The rusted rails arched from the ground like the spine of a giant beast. Suddenly, mechanical sounds. A train car rolled by slowly, dragging the screech of metal and the stench of burnt oil behind it. No power, no operator. I pulled out my phone to film, and through the lens, I saw her, a girl, sitting alone in the car, wearing a red dress, long hair covering her face, still, frozen. I zoomed in. She looked straight at the camera. I dropped my phone. The train disappeared around a curve, and never came back. I turned to leave, but as I passed the guard booth, a crackling came from the radio inside. Then, a voice, old and scratchy. "This is Gareth Doyle. I'm trapped in the Ferris wheel at 5:12 p.m. Can anyone hear me? Repeat. Is anyone there? Gareth Doyle. I'd read that name in an old article. He was the only security guard who went missing back in 1993 when the park shut down after a fatal accident. They never found his body. I checked my watch. 5:12 p.m. I ran. But the exit gate was gone. Just a tall concrete wall. Silent. Cold. Too high to climb. I pounded on it. Screamed. No answer. The light faded. And the night here wasn't like any night I'd ever known. It was thick, heavy, as if I was sinking into a liquid darkness. Then, the radio buzzed again. I thought I just had one more shift to finish, but it won't let me go. I just hope someone hears me. I broke down crying, not from fear, but because I knew I was going to be the next voice in that radio. 2 months later, my camera was found at a flea market in Genoa, over 150 kilometers away. All memory cards were burned black, except for one 3-minute recording, a whisper, repeating over and over again. Gareth never left. I arrived in the village of Schwarztal on a late October afternoon. The sun went down fast, like someone had flicked off a switch. The bus dropped me off at a small, unlit roundabout. Wind swept across the empty fields. A rusted iron sign swung overhead, creaking in the breeze. Guesthouse Creamer. Creamer Guesthouse. I dragged my suitcase along a cobbled path. The only light came from an oil lantern hanging outside an old wooden house. 2 stories tall, moss-covered roof, faded timber walls, and shuttered windows. No voices. Only the smell of damp grass, rotting earth, and firewood smoke in the air. The whole village felt preserved in a sealed jar from a century ago. I knocked 3 times. Footsteps approached inside. Then, the slow turn of a key. The door opened a crack. An elderly woman appeared, silver hair tied back, dressed in black, wearing an apron. Her grey eyes didn't blink. They looked like they'd grown used to darkness, more than light. "You're... Lena?" she asked, in thick, accented English. I nodded. She turned and walked inside without a word, leaving the door open. My room was at the far end of a long hallway on the 2nd floor. The floorboards creaked beneath every step. Dim yellow light from old filament bulbs painted everything in faded sepia tones. She gave only one instruction: no walking around after 10. This house keeps quiet hours. The room was small, single bed, an old writing desk, a tall wardrobe nearly touching the ceiling, a mirror on the wall, and a window facing a foggy field, with the edge of the Black Forest in the distance. The air smelled of damp wood, mildew, and old cloth. I checked my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi either, just silence. I sat on the bed. The mattress sagged deeply under my weight, the springs groaned softly, like something exhaling between its teeth. That first night I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a sound outside my door. Footsteps. Light, slow, not hurried, but careful, like someone unfamiliar with the path inching forward. Creak. Creak. The sound stopped, right outside. I held my breath. No light under the door, no turning of the handle, just silence. And then, nothing. The next morning, I asked Mrs. Kramer, "Was someone walking in the hallway last night?" She stared at me. "No one stays on the 2nd floor, except you." Day 2, I explored the village, taking photos for my thesis on traditional architecture. On my way back, I spoke to an old man smoking outside a bakery. "How long has the Kramer guest house been around?" I asked. He squinted at me, then said quietly, "Too long. Long enough to forget why it should have stayed empty." That night, while changing clothes, I noticed a cracked panel in the back of the wardrobe. Curious, I gently pulled a few loose boards. Behind them was a cloth pouch, tightly tied. I opened it. Inside was a torn white shirt, stained brown-red. The fabric had gone stiff with age, and the smell, sharp, metallic, hit me instantly. Blood. Old blood. I shoved it back, sealed the boards, and washed my hands, but the scent clung to my fingers like oil. That second night around 3 a.m., it wasn't just footsteps. I heard breathing, very close, just outside my door. It wasn't normal breathing. It was heavy, wet, like someone with a throat full of water, or blood. I didn't move. The third morning, I decided to leave. I packed my things and went downstairs, but Mrs. Kremer was nowhere to be found. I called out. No answer. Back upstairs, I noticed the mirror in my room had shifted. It was tilted slightly sideways. I don't remember touching it. But there, on the frame, was a faint handprint, larger than mine, scratched, like from long fingernails. I raised my phone to take a photo, but the camera couldn't focus. The screen turned blurry, then shut off. When it came back on, the photo was gone. I looked back at the mirror. I didn't see my reflection. I saw a figure, a silhouette behind me. When I turned around, nothing. That night I stayed awake, lamp on, eyes fixed on the door. Around 2:30 a.m. I heard a soft metallic click, a lock turning from below. I opened my door quietly and crept downstairs. The steps groaned under my weight. Faint light flickered in the sitting room. Then I noticed it. A door, under the staircase. Iron. I had never seen it before. I leaned close. Inside, it wasn't completely dark. There was a dim yellow glow and a dragging sound. Something heavy sliding across concrete. I ran. Back to my room, blocked the door with a chair. I didn't sleep at all. Morning. While checking under the bed for my charger, I found a leather-bound notebook. Cracked cover. The name, Clara Kremer, 1976. The first page read, March 17th, another guest disappeared. No one asked questions. Mother told me not to say a word. They went down to the basement and never came back. I flipped through. Disjointed notes. The breathing under the door. The mirror shows what's not real. The white-haired woman cuts my hair while I sleep. I don't remember who I am anymore. The final page read, My birth date is also their birth date. My name is Callum Hayes. I'm 38 years old and I work the night shift at the Northumberland Historical Museum in northeast England. This place used to be a Victorian-era train station, later converted into a relic museum, showcasing everything from dinosaur skeletons and Egyptian mummies to Roman artifacts unearthed near Hadrian's Wall. I've been working here for 7 years, quiet, on time. Nothing ever happened until that night. My shift started at 9 p.m. I took over from George, the evening guard, but that day he looked shaken. He leaned in and said, voice low and trembling, There's something in the Egyptian exhibit. I heard footsteps, whispers, but the cameras didn't catch anything. I thought it might be the wind, but that room is sealed tight. I chuckled. Maybe it's just a rat. These relics are thousands of years old. Wouldn't be the weirdest thing. But George didn't laugh. As he walked off, he turned and added, I'm not superstitious, Callum. But tonight, if anything strange happens, don't check it out alone. By 10 p.m., The whole building was silent, like a graveyard. I started checking the surveillance cameras one by one. Ground floor, nothing. World War gallery, all clear. Then I switched to the side camera in the Egyptian room, where a wooden sarcophagus carved with hieroglyphs was displayed. Something caught my eye, a light curtain in the corner, gently swaying. I stared. There were no windows, no ventilation. I tried to dismiss it. Around 12:05 a.m., as I was sitting in the control room, I heard a faint click. The sound of a wooden door, slowly creaking open. It came from the hallway behind me. I turned. The motion sensor lights were still on. I stood up, grabbed my flashlight and walked slowly, one step at a time. There was no wind, but I heard it. Shh. Shh. Like fabric dragging across the stone floor. Then a wave of scent hit me, thick and musty, a mix of incense, decayed wood, and ancient dust. It was the same exact smell I remembered from the mummy vault when I first entered it back in 2018. I turned on the flashlight. No one was there. But the sound came again. This time from upstairs. The second floor was the most deserted part of the museum. The ancient Egypt exhibit. I always hated going up there at night. It had this feeling, like something was waiting, even though the air conditioning shuts off at 6 p.m. As I climbed the old wooden stairs, I felt it clearly. Someone was watching me from above. I'm not someone who scares easily. I'm a former Marine. But that night, every instinct in me was screaming. When I reached the door, it was locked from the inside. I didn't remember locking it. I used my key. The moment I opened it, a dim yellow light spilled into the hall, eerie and dull. And then I froze. The sarcophagus, the one always kept sealed behind thick glass, was now open. I stopped at the doorway. My skin crawled, not from the cold, but from the sensation that someone had just brushed past my shoulder. I spun around. No one. But on the hallway mirror, there was a foggy imprint, like someone had just exhaled against it. I stepped inside. My flashlight swept across blackened stone statues, pottery etched with ancient curses, linen wraps soaked in Egyptian resin. I could smell it, burnt dust, dried spices, embalming oil, sharp and earthy. I heard the camera rotating slowly. Click, click. It was still working, but the control room feed had already gone black. Then I saw it. Behind the statue of Anubis, a figure, still, watching. I approached. My footsteps echoed. Thump, thump. Then the flashlight flickered out, and I heard the whisper, right next to my ear. Rekadampet. The voice was like wind blowing through bones. I didn't understand the words, but each syllable felt like claws brushing my throat. Fumbling, I tried to turn the light back on. It took over 15 seconds. When it finally lit again, there was no one there, but on the floor, sand, real sand, as if something had dragged its feet across the room. I followed the trail. It led to a back staircase, one I'd never used, leading up to the attic. It had been sealed shut since 2003, but the old wooden door, rusted nails and all, was ajar. A gust of wind hit my face. It carried a groan. I had never been to the attic. I'd only heard that it stored unprocessed relics, untouched for 20 years. But that night, I climbed the stairs, even as my mind screamed to stop. The rotting boards creaked beneath my boots. The smell was indescribable, like dried sweat, funeral wine, burnt offerings, mummified rot. I shined the flashlight toward the back of the attic, and I saw a figure, hunched over, back turned, wearing a long black robe, bald head, skin dry and tight against the skull, like leather over bone. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. I took a step closer, then another. 3 steps away. The figure turned. That face. No eyes. Just hollow sockets and cracked skin. Its mouth gaped open, no tongue, and from deep inside came a rasping noise, like bones grinding together. I stumbled back. The figure didn't move. But I heard footsteps, all around me. To the right, another figure. To the left, one more. I backed up until my shoulders hit the wall, and from the cracks in the walls, sand began to pour out. No wind, no opening, just sand. Spilling like from a shattered pyramid. I turned and ran, dropped my flashlight, slipped, and that's when a hand, cold and dry like ancient parchment, grabbed my ankle. I screamed, and then I woke up. I was lying just outside the emergency exit. It was 4:12 a.m. Street lights flickered outside. No sound, but my shoes were full of sand. I walked home, didn't go back to the control room, didn't check the footage. The next morning, I quit. Didn't ask for my pay. Didn't say goodbye. 3 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a surveillance tape from that night. No video. Just a whispering voice. For 4 hours and 12 minutes. It's been 2 years. I garden now. Have nothing to do with museums anymore. But on still, windless nights, I still hear it. Reketimpet. And once, while looking in the mirror, I saw a figure standing behind me, eyeless. The Northumberland Museum is still open, but they don't open the attic. And I, Callum Hayes, only have one piece of advice for whoever takes my place. If the flashlight goes out, don't try to turn it back on.